Hey guys, Stu Rutherford here, and welcome to this interview with Edinburgh Rugby Managing Director Doug Struth. It's been just over a year now that Doug has been in post as Edinburgh Rugby Managing Director, so we thought what better time to catch up with him, albeit via Zoom, to hear about the ins and outs of what undoubtedly has been a whirlwind 12 months in the role. So without further ado, Doug, how are you getting on?
I'm very well, Stu. How are you doing?
All good, all good. I know the supporters have obviously heard from you via your written updates and maybe those who came to an evening with Edinburgh Rugby. But first of all, how are you getting on? How is lockdown life for you?
Oh, lockdown life's it's interesting. It's got three young boys at home, so the challenges of homeschooling for my wife and I have been real. We're into the school holidays now, so that's changing a little bit. But no, it's been good. Look, obviously there's huge challenges in the world, and there's been some pretty horrendous things going on, so cognizant of that. But I have to say, just from a purely personal perspective, it's actually just been nice to spend a bit of time with the family. I think one of the things about this job is, as you know as well, you're working pretty much every weekend, and it's a busy club through the week as well and during the season. So to actually just get a bit of chance to take a bit of time with the family has been quite nice.
On a lighter note, I have asked everyone that I've interviewed so far, the hair's looking good. I mean, have you cut that yourself?
That is, I have to say, that is a self-lockdown haircut. Yeah. My wife had the first go at it. I think she had the first lockdown go at it, but she's been too scared to do it ever since. So apparently I'm not great in the barber's chair. Too picky. Although I don't know why, having seen what I've produced myself. So,
well, listen, no comment from me. As this interview is, I'll ask a few questions, but part of this interview, we've also gone out to supporters to get their questions as well via the club's social channels and via the Edinburgh Rugby fans group. So we'll get to those questions later on. But first of all, a couple of questions from me. I mean, first off, as we mentioned there, it's nearly a year in post, or probably just past a year now in post. How would you sum up? You probably need a lot of words to sum it up, but your first season as managing director.
Yeah, eventful, I think, is probably the best way to describe it, Stu. I think when sat down in July and kind of thought about the year ahead, well, I don't think anyone could have put global pandemic into the business plan at that stage. But nevertheless, like our fans, like our sponsors, that was the hand that we've all been kind of dealt over the past few months. So we just adapt accordingly, I think, which is just the way we do it. But look, in terms of the last year, despite all the challenges of COVID-19, there's been some real positives as well. Some real stuff that we can look back on with some pride. For example, after a bit of an initial delay with the building warrant process, we've managed to get our new stadium project back on track, ready for next season. We've launched our official podcast this year, which has been really well received and has obviously been going strong during lockdown. We had, I think, 27,500 people through the gates for our Christmas 1872, which is a new record. I think it was 21,000 the year before. So to add 6,500 fans to that in 1 year, I think it's a huge achievement for the club. From a season ticket perspective, I think we were 30% up this year on the year before that. So I think we've now got something like just under 2,900 season ticket holders to take with us into the new stadium, which is a great place to be. Launched our Moncrief Club. The Moncrief Club obviously being our new past players club. So recognising our heritage, recognising our history, and respecting as well the players that have gone before, that have played for us down the years. I think it's literally hundreds have already signed up for that. Hundreds of past players have signed up for that. And if there's any past players obviously looking or listening to this, and encourage them to get involved, because one of the great things about lockdown actually has been the support that we've had from the Moncrief Club and our past players. As you know, Those guys have really stepped up and supported us in terms of content whilst our players have been on furlough. So that's just been brilliant. And I think we've also, over the last year, just kind of developed closer links with our fans, the fan group, and that's just been great to see, and it's really important. That's just a really, really important part of what we're doing. But look, the bottom line as well in terms of the last year is we're winning. We're winning consistently, I think, on and off the pitch, and obviously just when the league and European competitions were suspended, we're top of the league and in the quarterfinals in Europe, and that's just a great place to be. So I guess in answer to your questions, Stu, eventful for sure.
Well, you touched on it there around this period probably being a period where we maybe got closer to, as you said, our past players and our own fan base as well. 3 months. This 3 months has obviously been hugely challenging, but do you almost feel like we're coming out the other side now with stronger links and stronger as a club as well?
I think we are. I think we absolutely are. Look, there's no two ways about it. The last few months have been difficult for us as a club. They'll have been just as difficult for our fans and our sponsors in their own personal and business circumstances. But look, no two ways about it. Without any kind of ticketing income through the door since we played Cardiff back in February, that's been challenging. But look, I think personally we've responded brilliantly as a club, and when I say we, I do mean that across the whole club. The off-field team, our players, our coaches, our fans, our sponsors, our past players. We've talked about. I think sometimes it probably just takes a wee bit of adversity to pull everybody together and make everybody realise what's important. And I think that's really, really happened over the past few months at Edinburgh Rugby. We've all come together, and I think I've just been exceptionally proud of the way we've done that. I think during lockdown we've focused on a few kind of key areas. I think in many ways just try and keep it really simple. We focused on that kind of return to rugby. Working with Scottish Rugby, working with the Pro 14, working with EPCR, is to try and get all of those tournaments, resumed in as safe a way as possible. And obviously that now is in a good place. There's a target there, which I'm sure we'll talk about, to resume those seasons, which is great. Managed to get our players back into training as well in the past couple of weeks. They've started that kind of phased return to training with voluntary individual fitness activity at BT Murrayfield, and hopefully that will build in time into more formal training, which gets us to those matches to conclude the season. We've obviously had to do a lot of planning around next year as well during this period, planning around what our ticketing strategy for next year looks like, what our community strategy looks like, what our commercial strategy looks like, essentially just to make sure that as a club we're ready for what's going to be the new normal next year, and we're ready to respond to that. We've obviously had the new stadium as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about the new stadium in more detail as well. But I think if you talk about kind of lockdown and coming through that as a club, the thing that's been made me really, really proud though is that engagement piece that we focused on. I think as well as I do, Stu, at the start of lockdown, we kind of sat down as an off-field team in particular, and they said, right, look, there's no live rugby for the next wee while, but how can we continue to be a constant presence in our fans' lives, at what's going to be a really difficult time? How can we continue to keep our channels going with new creative content, and how can we I guess be a bit of a beacon of hope for people at a time it's going to be really, really challenging. So I'm super proud of how we did that from an engagement piece. So many different examples of that, in terms of what we've looked at. I think we've taken now over 230,000 viewers.
Yeah.
Down memory lane through our Denton's Capital Classics. So every Saturday afternoon at 3:00 during lockdown, we've been able to sit down and enjoy a classic Edinburgh rugby game. I have to say, as a bit of a long-suffering Edinburgh rugby fan myself, I've half expected to sit down on a Saturday and watch us lose a game that we won 15 years ago. But that's just the way of it sometimes.
I don't think we've ever had quite a run like that. I mean, I think it was 15 games in the trot we've won every Saturday. So, I mean...
We're doing well, but as I say, it would be just like us to lose a game that we won 15 years ago. So, but no, that's been great. We've picked our All-Star 15, our Principal and Prosper All-Star 15 of all the players that over the years, which was really good fun and created some good debate. We've had insights from our past players through the Principal and Prosper All Access series, and we've got back in touch with our Centurions, with our Glen Murray Centurions series. So loads of really, really good stuff's been going on, and some stuff that I think we can be really, really proud of. Our local hero initiative, recognising those in the community who have gone above and beyond during COVID. And we've done that in partnership with It's Good to Give, our charity partner. And we've had quizzes, we've had the virtual evening with Edinburgh Rugby, which was supported by Signature Pubs, and we've had the Stay at Home initiative with Galbraith. So much going on there. And one that I was really, really proud of was back in March, April, just before the players went on furlough. We were able to mobilise right across the club. And again, this is just an example of the club coming together, mobilise right across the club to distribute, I think, over 150 unique and personal player messages to our fans over, I think, just a 10-day period, as I say, before the players went on furlough. And hopefully that just lifted the spirits of our fans a wee bit. What was definitely back in March, April, a very difficult time. So, all in all, I actually think we've come through this process, this kind of period, stronger as a club. I think we've come together stronger with our fans. We've come together stronger with our sponsors. And I think the relationships we've built right across the club over this period are going to stand us in really good stead moving forward.
What you didn't mention there, though, was your favourite bit of content, which was the chainsaw coming on the podcast.
Well, absolutely. It kind of goes back to some of my memories of watching Edinburgh Rugby down at Meadowbank in the kind of early to mid 2000s, and obviously that game. I think that was our first Capital Classic, wasn't it? Yeah. That game at Meadowbank in 2003 against Toulouse, and the chainsaw ripping through the Toulouse defence at the end to get that winning score. They're just some of kind of my personal memories. That's kind of one of the things that really makes me smile. And so to have a character like Brendan Laney, like the chainsaw, as I say, dial in from New Zealand in the early hours of the morning in New Zealand, and help us out and just give us a bit of an insight to what he's doing right now. And as I say, take us down memory lane. That was really great. But there was loads of examples of that, even just on a personal level. One of our Capital Classics was the Scarlets game from a couple of seasons ago at the end of the year. And, that was my wee boy's first game, So it was just nice just to sit down and watch those games on a Saturday and just reminisce a wee bit.
Definitely. Well, as we now start to look forward, a couple of weeks ago, the Guinness Pro 14 announced their proposed resumption dates. And with that, we were able to give supporters a little bit of clarity on ticketing for season 19-20. What we offered supporters was obviously the chance of a ticket credit, a contribution to the club, or a refund. And it's been staggering in terms of the generosity that the supporters have shown to us so far. But I guess the question is, what's been your own reaction to I guess, the kindness that's been shown to us by the supporters?
Oh, look, it's been humbling, to be honest with you. As you say, following off that Pro 14 announcement on the conclusion of the season, I think the reality is those matches are going to be behind closed doors. If they're not going to be behind closed doors, certainly in front of a very, very limited crowd. So yeah, we took that decision to effectively offer our season ticket holders and relevant match ticket holders those three options. The three options being obviously a refund to the value of any matches they'd missed, or a credit to the value to be applied to a future season ticket product, or actually just to say, look, opt to leave their money in the club, which helps us. Obviously, goes back to that point around no income coming into the club since that Cardiff game in February. That just helps us immeasurably in terms of our operating costs over the period, and just allows us to keep doing what we're doing in terms of our work in the community and in and around the club. So I have to say, a truly humbling response to that. I think as it stands, I think there's only about 5% of our season ticket holders have opted for that refund option. I think over 50% have opted to actually leave their money in the club, which is phenomenal, really, when you take into account where we are and how difficult people's financial circumstances are going to be off the back of COVID-19. I think it's testimony to a couple of things, really. I think it's testimony to how hard we've worked as a club behind the scenes to develop those options. I think it's testimony to the fact that we've listened to our supporters, our fans. They wanted those options, so we went away and thought, right, how do we make those work? But I think it's also testimony just as to how much our fans care about the club. This is really kind of struck home to me, is that there's just such a kind of feeling for the club out there that people want to support us. Now, just to be really clear, not saying for a second that any fan who's opted to leave their money in the club as opposed to taking a refund is somehow a kind of better fan or not. Absolutely not the case. We absolutely recognise that, particularly at this time, everyone's individual financial circumstances is going to be different. But that was the whole point of giving people options. So certainly, I think that's really, really kind of hit home.
And Doug, obviously staying on ticking, can you now give us a little bit of an update on 2021 ticketing?
Yeah, so that's obviously certainly some of the feedback I've got from supporters. Lots of questions getting asked around, what does that look like? What are the plans there for next season? I guess what I would ask is just a wee bit more patience. I know our supporters have been super patient so far in that sense, but maybe just a wee bit more patience, because it's still just really difficult with all of the moving parts that are going on, those COVID-19 related moving parts. For example, we still don't know for sure whether we're going to have to start behind closed doors or not. And if we're not starting behind closed doors for the 2020-21 season, then we're more likely to be in the realms of physical distancing and what that means for everybody. And then also the added factor is our new stadium in terms of when that's ready. But equally, if we're still in the realms of physical distancing, then strategically as a club, I think we may well take that decision and actually say, well, look, we'll remain in the main bowl for a period to ensure, I guess, that as many of our fans as possible can access match tickets in a physically distanced environment. If we can get crowds back in a 67,000 seater stadium as opposed to being in a 7,800 seater stadium into the new stadium. So that's something we've already consulted with our fans on, and I think they're very supportive of that. But from a ticketing perspective, we just still need a wee bit more time to see what we can do, because I think one thing's for certain for me: if we're going on sale with a season ticket product, it needs to be realistic, it needs to be flexible, and I think it needs to be adaptable, and it needs to be affordable at this time. So there's a lot of thought going into that at the moment, continues to go into that on a daily basis at the moment. That's not to say that we won't be able to sell season tickets, but it may well be we need to wait till kind of August, September time until things become a wee bit clearer as to whether we can launch a season ticket, and if we can launch a season ticket, what that season ticket looks like and where that season ticket is based. Is it new stadium or is it main bowl? So in the meantime, because another bit of feedback we've had is very much that people want to support us right now. They want to get behind us and help us out. So in the meantime, what we're going to look to do is in the coming weeks launch a range of, creative and value for money membership options for our supporters to be able to purchase with a range of rights and benefits that if we can't sell a season ticket because games are behind closed doors for a significant period, then there's still value for money. There's still rights and benefits in there that will make them attractive for our fans to buy. But equally, if we can sell a season ticket in the future, then if you have bought a membership, then that membership will complement the season ticket, if that makes any sense. So ensure that you're still getting value, and that value that you've used for your membership is applied to that season ticket. So again, that's the flexibility that we're just trying to offer people. So that's very much kind of in plans at the moment. So I guess more details to follow, Stu. But thank all the fans for their patience on that.
Yeah, definitely. Watch this space.
Yeah.
As I mentioned there, obviously, as alluded to, 2 back-to-back games against Glasgow Warriors. For yourself, how exciting is the prospect of that? But to face our rivals in the West, and especially with us on the cusp of securing a place in the semi-finals, I mean, you must be excited about those fixtures.
Oh, I think, yeah, it's difficult not to get excited about those fixtures. Look, it's difficult not to get excited about 1872 fixtures at the best of times, isn't it? But given everything we've all been through over the past few months, to now have something real and tangible to target is just gives us all something positive to aim for now. So as you say, 2 games against Glasgow at BT Murrayfield on the weekend of the 22nd of August, and then again on the weekend of the 29th of August. I think the weekend of the 22nd of August will be the Edinburgh Rugby home game, and the weekend of the 29th of August being the Glasgow Warriors home game. It's going to be a great experience. I think it's going to be, it will be good. It will be, I have to say, after everything we've been through, just to see rugby being played again, and just to see that Edinburgh team stepping back out over the whitewash again, even if it is behind closed doors. I think that's going to be something special. One of the things that we're working really, really hard with Scottish Rugby and the Scottish Government on is whether there might be a possibility of having that game on the 22nd of August as a test event for crowds going forward. You know, whether that's possible or not still remains to be seen. But obviously, we'll continue to work, hard and work collaboratively with Scottish Rugby and the Scottish Government on that to see if that's possible. But even if it's not, I think it's going to just be a really, really special thing for our fans to see. And look, you know what? In terms of excitement, as I say, when the league was suspended, we're top of our conference. I think we're 10 points clear of Scarlets, who are in third. We're 2 or 3 points clear of Munster. So look, there's a real shot here. There's a real possibility of a run into the playoffs now for the club. And you know what? I think I said in one of my previous updates as well, not getting ahead of ourselves. We're definitely not getting ahead of ourselves. But we're potentially only 3 games away from a Pro 14 final as it stands. And as I say, if that doesn't get the hairs on the back of the neck going as an Edinburgh fan, then nothing will. That's just something really, really good to look forward to.
On to the European stage. The Pro 14's announcement also saw us qualify for next season's Champions Cup, while EPCR obviously recently updated their fixtures with our quarter final against Bordeaux. So 2 questions really. How much are you looking forward to going back to Bordeaux to face them in a Challenge Cup quarter final? And secondly, how much are you looking forward to being back at the top table of European rugby next season?
The Challenge Cup just adds another dimension, really, in terms of that excitement we were talking about around the return to competitive rugby. It's the quarterfinals of a competition. It's a competition we're going strong in. It's the opportunity to go back over to Bordeaux, where obviously we were there earlier in the season in the group stage. Opportunity to go back over there against a team that's finished top of the French top 14 and really just challenge ourselves in that respect. So that's just going to be, I think, as I say, another dimension to that return to competitive action, and something we can really get our teeth into and look forward to. And in terms of obviously the announcement that we've secured qualification for the Heineken Champions Cup next year, just again another boost for the club moving into the new season. And I think also just rewards for all the effort that the players have put in over the season so far. You know, to see that crystallise and realise that we're in that cup is great. We've obviously seen some epic European battles over the years, and in truth, I think getting back into that Champions Cup a couple of seasons ago and the run into the quarter-final, I think that made us all realise how much we missed it. Yeah. Being in the Challenge Cup for a few years and obviously back into the Challenge Cup this year. So to know that the cream of European rugby is returning to Edinburgh next year, just in time for our new stadium being ready, is really good. And I think those European match nights, those Champions Cup match nights in the new stadium are going to be very, very special indeed.
Takes me nicely on to my final question, just from me, Doug. Onto the stadium, obviously construction has now resumed. I've been down in the stadium, I've seen it, it looks absolutely fantastic. And, you know, construction is moving on pretty quickly as well. So I guess really, how positive is it for you to see it moving so quickly, and how positive is it that our new home it's kind of inching closer and closer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like, we obviously had to suspend the build phase of that project back at the end of March because of COVID, and rightly so. But you know, absolutely delighted that. Well, actually, I should say, whilst the build phase was suspended, right the way through all of that, the project itself was very much still alive. You know, a lot of people working behind the scenes to ensure that you know, our supply chains were preserved, and you know, working with our contractors, staying engaged with our contractors, and you know, managing the finances of it all, and ensuring we were keeping abreast of the latest developments in terms of government restrictions on the construction industry, so that we were ready to go as soon as it was safe to do so. You know, so absolutely delighted now that with the easing of restrictions, the easing of COVID-related restrictions in the construction industry, we were able to start again back on site. So WH Malcolm, our main contractor, they were able to come back in on the 15th of June, and then they were closely followed by Arena Seating, who are building the stands. They were able to come back in on the 22nd of June. So like, rapid progress since then, to be honest with you. I had the pleasure of actually going on site yesterday to just see what was going on, and I think 3 of the 4 stands now are pretty much up. The roofs, I think, are going on to those stands in the coming days, and then the final stand will be the main stand, the north stand, that will get built in the coming weeks. So you know, the progress has been rapid since the contractors have come back on site. And actually, even just walking around and just getting a sense of the place, you can really feel what a match night is going to be like, what a match night is going to be sounding like next season, and just get a real sense of the excitement and all the possibilities that are ahead of us as a club with that new stadium. So yeah, look, it's really good. How long to go, I guess, is probably the obvious question. When we suspended for COVID, there was about 12 weeks to go at that stage. We'd made real progress, which was why it was, I guess, so frustrating. One of the many reasons it was so frustrating to suspend it when we had to. 12 weeks to go at that stage. We're just in the process now, though, with the contractors back on site. We're just at the process of replanning that build program now with them, and just taking into account COVID-19, because both of those contractors are obviously physically distancing now in terms of the build. So the impact on site productivity and the timelines we're just kind of assessing now. So not necessarily as straightforward as saying it's 12 weeks from now, if you know what I mean, because we have to factor all of that in. But, you know, with a fair wind, I'd like to think that kind of October, November time, we're going to be looking at maybe getting that handed over to us, and start to plan from there in our new home.
Well, Doug, obviously that brings to a close my part of the interview. But part of this interview, we've obviously opened up to our supporters via social media and the Edinburgh Rugby Fans Group. So we've got a good selection of questions here that we're going to take you through. So first question comes from Rona Trey, who's asked, will there be women's wear moving forward? I believe this is a question it's been asked quite a bit, but hopefully you have a little bit of clarity on this.
Yeah, well, actually, Stu, this was probably the first bit of feedback I got back in July when I joined. It's probably the first question I got asked, and rightly so. The lack of women's wear in the Edinburgh range. So no, absolutely, very, very pleased to say that yes, there will be a women's wear range within the Edinburgh Rugby range for the coming season, for the 2020-21 season. So we'll start that off with I think a polo shirt, a hoodie, and a t-shirt, and hopefully that then gives us a basis to move forward with our fuller women's range in future years. But yes, no, absolutely, there will be a women's range next year.
That's brilliant. I'm sure our supporters will be very happy to know that. Next question comes from Bill McMurray, who has asked, will there be a way to watch the Glassful games if I don't have Premier Sports?
The two 1872 games?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously the TV deal is a central deal. That's obviously a deal that Pro 14 negotiates, and Premier Sports are obviously the broadcaster for the league, and offer the league a lot of support in that sense. So yeah, Premier Sports will be the host broadcaster for those games, but on the basis that may well be behind closed doors or in front of a very limited crowd. One of the things we're looking at really, really closely at the moment in a lot of detail is what are the more creative ways that we can bring those games to fans if they can't make it into the stadium, or indeed if they don't have Premier Sports. So yeah, watch this space again in terms of what that might look like. Potentially, obviously, if Premier Sports is broadcasting the match itself, can we do something in and around the game, before the final whistle, before the opening whistle and after the final whistle? Can we bring fans together virtually, for example, if it's not safe to do so in a venue to watch those games? I think because that's one of the things that I think fans are probably missing is being able to watch matches in a sense, watch matches together. With the fellow Edinburgh Rugby fans. So if they can't make it into the stadium and they don't have Premier Sports, that's absolutely something that we're looking at trying to bring for people.
Brilliant. Thanks, Doug. Next question is from Chelsea Douglas, who we've both met before. She's an avid Edinburgh supporter. She's asked, where will the wheelchair sections be in the new stadium?
Yeah, so there'll be accessible seating in every single stand, actually. Every single stand right across the stadium will include accessible seating. But over and above that, there'll also be a dedicated accessible terrace in the north stand, in the main stand. So yeah, there'll be options in all stands, but the kind of principal focal point will be in the main stand in a dedicated area.
Brilliant. Final question in our support section comes from Blair Hockley, and he's asked, what are the goals for the season? So I don't know if it means this season or next season, but maybe you can cover off both. Yeah,
well, I guess for this season, it's for me very much kind of continuing on the field, continuing where we left off. As I say, continuing from that position whereby we're top of the league. We're in a quarter final in Europe. We've got the playoffs to look forward to, and pushing on from there, and very much targeting what would be, I guess, the first piece of professional silverware for the club. And wouldn't that be an absolutely fabulous way to round off this past few months? As I say, very much not getting ahead of ourselves. There's lots of challenges before us before we can start thinking about that. But look, that has to be the target. That has to be the goal now, given where we are on and off the field. And I think also from an off-field perspective, again, just kind of continuing what we're doing. As I say, the relationships that we've built with our fans, with our sponsors, with our community over the past few months has to be a target for the rest of the season, just to continue that and to build on that. Yeah, and obviously looking forward, beyond this season and the rest of this season, we've got a long-term vision for the club. for the next 3 years anyway as to what we want this club to be, where we want this club to be like for our supporters and our sponsors over the next 3 years. And that involves building our stadium, which we'll obviously do over the summer, and making that stadium our home, which is really, really important. Getting that match day experience right, making our fans feel that they belong there, that it's the place they want to be on a Friday night to support their team. Hugely important. On that building theme as well, building a proper rugby club.
Yeah.
Building a proper rugby club that's in the DNA of the clubs and schools in Edinburgh and the Lothians and the Borders and Fife. One that people are proud of, one that people are inspired by. That's hugely important for us. And beyond that, obviously, selling out our games in a red hot atmosphere in that new stadium, and winning trophies. As I say, for this season, I think we've got a huge shout to do that. And going forward into the seasons beyond that, that's going to be a big part of what we're about, is consistently winning on and off the pitch. COVID-19 has not derailed any of that. It's not changed any of that. We still have that long-term vision. And I think that is something that we can all look forward to. And if we pull together the way that we've all pulled together across the club in the past few months, I think we'll get there.
Doug, I think that finishes the interview excellently there. You've rounded it off. Goals for this season and next. So listen, really appreciate you joining us for this. Great to get an update from you, and I'm sure the supporters will appreciate an update as well. And maybe just want to finish on, do you have a message for any of the supporters watching this, just as we kind of navigate through COVID-19 and hopefully into return to competitive rugby pretty soon?
No, look, just as I say, thank you. I genuinely mean that. Everybody at the club means that, because the support has been fantastic from our fans over the past few months. We are in no doubt that these have been difficult times for everybody. So the way our fans have stepped up in terms of so many different things, season tickets being one of them, has just been phenomenal. So I really, really appreciate the support. Really, really appreciate the patience, and let's now push on with the rest of the season and let's get playing some rugby again.
Perfect. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Stu.